What's up, everybody? Welcome back. All right. Today's lesson is very interesting. It's not knife fighting, but it's about urban movement. It's based on Ed Calderon's seminar, but I learned it kind of like a short, quick version from my mentor here in Mexico City, and I thought I shared some notes for myself in the future, and of course for you guys to look at and think about. So essentially, urban movement is about fundamentally the environment and looking at the environment in an urban city setting. And why are we looking at this? Well, because let's say close quarter combat is where threat is imminent, it's right there, it's in your vicinity, and it's not really concerned so much with the environment so long as it's not causing any danger, like you're not falling off a cliff or going into a river or fire or whatever. That's the environment. But in this case, what we're really concerned with is the urban movement where the economy is moving. People are going about their business, and of course, the way the society is, things are in front of you, they're happening, and you can't even see it. Now, the irony is that when I dress like this and I go outside, you can clearly see me, and it's kind of like a marketing thing that I like to do. It's funny. It's kind of like a meme. But in the real world, you don't dress like this at all. In the kind of a more situational, operational kind of situation. Uh, for example, how we started the class was we were talking about how different environments we have to study. Whatever environments that we go into, we have to study. So let's say, for example, I was really concerned about, I don't know, Thailand or fucking Mexico City even, but like I was really focused on Thailand, for example. So like Thailand is like a small city, a lot of mountains and hills, and like everyone's Thai, and I'm like, not a big guy, but I'm not definitely a small guy. But compared to the average guy, I'm kind of thicker than them, so I won't blend in. I don't look like them racially and stuff like that. So this is a kind of an example. So like every other scenario is different. So if you go to if I go to my country, it's a different story. If I come here, it's different stories. So you have to look at it. So I'm focusing on this one. So I would look at my race, look at my background and how I look like and how I fit, and I look at the people and their like average, kind of like their dresses, the kind of like basic base point of their dresses. So like let's say if you wear a t-shirt and jeans in Myanmar, you wouldn't fit in. You'd stand out because nobody dresses like that. They wear those long skirt like things and with sandals. And I remember I was wearing combat boots with still skirts. Didn't work out very well. So like the key point here is to be able to find that the most average like kind of like dress. Now in Mexico, it's kind of like a baseball cap, very average looking, no colorful, no real big brands, nothing, something like that. And then like a colorless, like a symbolless, like a graphicless, like a plain T-shirt, and no tattoos, or at least very minimal tattoos, and jeans, like a loose fitting jeans, and sneakers, maybe a backpack or so. You dress like that, you're gonna disappear. Now my mentor, he made a really point to dress really deep like that, and then we went to walk around the block. And I lost him, and I think I saw him like 17 times, walk in front of me, walk around me. I would have noticed it because I was looking for him, and I thought I saw him 17 times, but he's purposely, and that's the whole concept of the gray man, is to be the unseeable. Now there's one other concept of being the invisible, kind of like, doesn't matter how fucking disgusting you are. For example, if I look like this and I have like a fucked up arm, or I just look like I have a fucked up arm, like kind of like Zatoichi, if you remember like the blind samurai, he would walk out with like some sort of like he's blind, or like you see a vagrant out there begging for cash and he's got like this weird injury that you don't even want to look at a long time and become this weird undesirable person. That also makes you invisible. So things like that makes you invisible. Now, if you're desirable, say like if you dress all nice, great in shape, look really good, really tall, really handsome, fucking dress really good, then you're fucking not gonna be able to camouflage very well because you're gonna be a desirable object that people are seeking out. So their brains, their reticular activation systems are seeking you, and they will find you. So when you go to the other spectrum and you go become undesirable, say you're short, fat, ugly, smell bad, dirty, their hair's all fucked up, dress is all fucked up, ripped up, dirty again, dirty, dirty, dirty. Fucking shit doesn't even fit, barefoot in the middle of the city. Very undesirable. People don't want to look at that. Now, there's a catch to it that if you're too fucking weird, that might become a thing. So it has to kind of fit in an archetype of a certain vagrancy. Now, you don't want to become an archetype of the villain or a Joker or something really psychotically weird. Then again, it becomes attractive because it's like, oh, look at this fucking psycho. He's fucking interesting. So I'm gonna fucking pay attention to him. And the more eyes on you, the less privacy you have. Then your cover's blown, whatever the fuck it is. You're trying to evade or whatever the fuck it is. Before we get any further, I'd like to say that these topics are mostly for entertainment. Most, like, look at me, do I look like I'm doing anything? And also, whatever the fuck you do with this information is your own responsibility. I'm just teaching the stuff what I learned, so that, again, like I said, for my own future notes that I look at, and like I'm just curious and I'm interested to learn about how kind of like tactical minded people would look at an urban setting and how they would move through it. Let's say if they were carrying something, or they were trying to accomplish something, or let's say they were trying to avoid any trouble. And I think these are kind of useful stuff considering the way the world is turning. Regardless, I think it's important to look at what we're trying to say here, because when you go into a social setting, or not just a social, like an area, you have to look at the socioeconomic class. What are the kind of people that go there? What kind of areas? Is it industrial, residential? Is it a school zone? Is it like a embassy zone? Or like, depending on the area, you have to be aware of the security settings and also like how the people are. And regarding what you're gonna do, are you doing surveillance? Are you doing like getting intelligence? Are you fucking? What are you trying to do? You're trying to, like, I don't know, maybe run a mission or meet someone. Whatever the fuck you're trying to do there, you gotta take these consideration. So my consideration was that, like, hey, what if I was in Thailand and we have this like hardcore global lockdown and visas are running out, or for whatever reason the government was against foreigners in Thailand. And being the intellectual that I am, I thought, like, well, why don't we just build on that creative scenario that I don't have any money, I've been separated from family, I'm on the run, and I don't have any documents, and I don't have any money. So we're like, okay, let's focus on that. First of all, let's talk about maintaining security. Well, apart from unarmed combat, which is always cool to know, and that depends on your expertise level, and you should always learn that stuff, but we're not concerned about that. Is forging any sort of tools or weapons that you can build right with nothing. Now, if you can see a kitchen knife somewhere, boom. If you got chopsticks somewhere, good. If you got, like, you can use this pen, right? And basically, all you would have to do is cut here, here, and here, like in like a diagonal kind of thing on the side, not all the way, just so that there's enough crack, so that when you use it as a shank, it will break off, and that thing will get stuck, and then you would use it again. So, like, you gotta build weapons for what you have. Like, let's say you get a padlock, all right? So you take this, and then let's say you get that fucking. That's why I carry this fucking thing. It's fucking so handy. So you can get like a little robe or a little something like that. This thing that can cause a lot of damage, especially if it's metal. This is plastic, so it's like a padlock. Stuff like that. So you can build weapons like that. Another thing you can do is, I don't know, tactical pens, all kinds of shit like that. And you've seen a million of those. Of course, knives themselves, apart from knives, like, for example, like this is like a little shit that I carry for cutting fruit. But there's nothing. It's not even that ideal. It's probably not even that strong. But these are tools that you would use in a kind of a defense scenario. Now, I'll go into another detail regarding those kind of tools, but right now I want to focus on essentially the environment, because that's what I focused on today. I'll make another video after this. If you click and subscribe, you'll be updated. So basically, that video will be about the weapons. Now, when we went into the market nearby, all right, so sorry about the pause. Basically, I was reviewing my notes, and essentially, we want to go into any urban settings from a surveillance view to kind of like look at what kind of like dangers they are, what kind of tactics. I mean, this is where like if you don't have social media, because you again, like I said, like I'm in Thailand and I have everything taken away. So and I've just come into kind of like a different part of town, and I'm trying to adapt with nothing, no room, no shelter, no food, water, nothing. So you're just empty hands. Maybe you found like a little knife or something, or nothing basically. So that was the kind of basic background. Now, in this kind of situation, you obviously want to change your dress to fit. So what I did is I took all this off. I had a t-shirt, pants, and like very simple. I had roughed up my hair and kind of looked a little roughed up. And I have a bruise from boxing training the other day. So we decided to make up a story for me. So when I'm there and I talk to someone and I ask for help, the story makes sense. I come from fucking America and I come over here and I got mugged at the metro and I spoke in English or try to have like very little Spanish to pretend that I got attacked and that I got robbed, so that I would use that story to gain sympathy so that they would help me. It was very easy to do because I had bruised and I hadn't eaten it in a couple of days because of fasting. So it was really came off as congruent. So the first guy I asked, like, hey man, like at first it was really hard to approach someone that you don't know to beg for money or food or anything like that because it's like so degrading at first. But when you get used to the concept of what you're trying to do, you get past all that. So I talked to the guy, and the guy was just sitting there smoking because all the people are like moving around. All the shit was so busy, so it was hard to approach people that much. So I approached someone that was sitting there smoking a cigarette. He looked at me, and I'm like, "Hey man, I just got mugged, and like I lost everything. I'll be sleeping in the street for a couple of days, and I don't have nothing. I got nothing to do. Can you just give me some fucking change?" I can't believe I fucked it. The poor guy gave me like 5 pesos. I had like 10 pesos, which is like, I don't know, 70 cents. And I went to the mango guy. I'm like, hey man, like, I fucking got mugged. And like, here's this fucking money. Can I just, and the fucking, he had a mango, cut up mango. And he would sell it with like a fork with salt and chamoy or whatever. And I'm like, I got this 10, I pretend I'm speaking Spanish. I got this 10 pesos, can I get some? And I'm like, oh, I got like a stick of cigarettes, can you give me some? And he's like, man, this ain't enough. He said something in Spanish, I don't remember what he said. And then he's like, this ain't enough. And I'm like, you know what, here, just take it. And then he's like, orale. And he took it. It's good, man. Mexican people are such dope people because they know what it is. And then he took it, he gave me the mango, I ate that, felt so good, got energy, went back on the road. And then I went to another one, and the teacher's like, okay, now you gotta get like some bigger food. I'm like, what the fuck? And this guy would just like disappear and reappear whenever he wanted to. I wouldn't find him. He'd find me, motherfucker. He was a fucking ninja. He's actually a ninja. He's actually a certified fucking black belt, third degree ninja, some bullshit like that. And then, so he's like, okay, try this church. I went to the church. It was like a courtyard in the church, and it's Semana Santa now. So I went in there, and I'm like, fuck, I'm actually pretty hungry. So I went up to this group. They were saying Pombasa or something like that. I forgot the name. It's like this bread or whatever. And I'm like, hey, excuse me, guys. Same story. I told them the same story. I'm like, hey, guys, I got mugged. I don't have any money. Can I just get something? And they just like look at me. The funny part was the look I got from the sandwich maker. She looked at me and she's like, he's actually hungry. So like, I don't know what they said, and they finally agreed to give me the sandwich. They gave me the sandwich. I'm like, okay, here's the 10 pesos. And they didn't even take my money. They even gave me 5 pesos too. So I had this fucking sandwich in my mouth, and I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I walked off, and the mentor showed up again like a fucking ninja that he is. And I'm like, yo, I got a sandwich. I got a mango. And he's like, okay, time for the market. But this time, don't be like this. Don't be like that. Like, don't be too loud. Don't be like do it again. So I went to the market. And then I tried a taco shop on the way, and I'm like, hey man, like I know at this point I was a little bit more calm because I ate already. The guy said no. There was sitting with his family. He said no. And I asked another guy there, said no too. And I'm like, oh man, it's not good to stick around. So like, it doesn't look good. And like, big fucking guy asking for food. Left. And then I went into the market, and then I asked them, hey man, like I don't have any money. And this guy spoke English, so I had to like speak a little clearer. I'm like, oh, I just got stuck here from Canada, and I was coming out this metro station. I got mugged. They took everything. And when I went to the embassy, they're like, you're just another Mexican. You can't prove you're Canadian. And I don't remember all my information. And he felt bad, bought me a lemonade. I tried to give him money. He didn't take it. He gave me, again, he just like took lemonade and took one last cigarette that I had. And I'm like, wow, I got 75 pesos worth of products by just a story and being in a certain area. So essentially, I hustled a kind of a block with this kind of like victim story. And it was the first time in my life I did something like that. And it was really eye-opening on several aspects, that like when people want to help you, they fucking, like, people are actually a lot nicer than you think. That's one. And two is that, like, well, you can't rely on all the time because they will say no, and especially if this gimmick is fucking bought up. But it was just heartwarming to see that people would help someone out in need. Um, that was really cool, and really restored my faith in like the common street. And of course, my mentor said, "Hey, don't think like that because if you went to, like, let's say a nice area, they might have said more no strongly, or if you went to a lower area, they might have said no more strongly because there's a kind of like a middle class area, so they get your pain and they got enough money to help you. Like in a high class area, it's like it's unacceptable that you're even there. It's a security threat, and the other side is like they don't have anyone to help you, and they resent the fact that you're asking for help. And you shouldn't be asking for help. You should fucking have a hustle. And this came to, led to other discussions like, hey man, I know how to tattoo, like can I use that? And like, yeah, you can do anything you want in the street, like fucking as long as you got that hustle and drive to push. And the whole concept is that you use the skills that you have to immediately give value so that you and I know a lot of you people out there, well, the ones that are out there in the street hustling, they won't be watching this shit. You're probably sitting at home enjoying your life. But if you ever do get stuck in a scenario where you do have to kind of like be able to trade immediately, provide some sort of good, some sort of value, whether it's a story, an act, music, sing song, tattoo, whatever the fuck it is, in that moment, you essentially increase your chance of survival. Because that sandwich, I hadn't ate in 2 days. And because I had that sandwich, now I had energy to think better. I had that lemon juice running through my veins, and I was like invigorated to find solutions to the next problem. And I think that was really cool. Now, some of the tips that he said, hey, don't talk so loud and be careful with the threading. Just because, I have an infantry background, combat background, like, I want to get something, go get it. And like that intimidates people. You don't want to have that. Body language is everything. Because like when you're trying to blend in an environment, you don't want to be like, just dressing like those people. You also have to behave like those people because blending in is not just fashion and articles of clothing. It's also behavior and how the emotions are expressed and cultural kind of like patterns. Another thing that we got into, that was pretty much the coolest part of the day, and I think that was really interesting that I could do that. Another part that we got into is as you're doing this, you're obviously gathering information of what to do and get information. And also for deeper help, so let's say I have a Harley Davidson shirt on and a buddy has a Harley Davidson shirt on. We might have that commonality and you might talk and maybe build a more normal and less urgent conversation and build some rapport and trust. And then that way you can kind of ask for kind of like, hey man, I've actually been here for a while and I'm trying to get my way back home, and it would really help me if you can just like let me borrow your phone, or like, show me where the internet is or something, so you can get like information like that to go home or whatever the fuck it is. Now in Thailand scenario would like, you'd have to gather information and again provide value in that scenario, which would be much harder because you're doing it in another language. But that being said, it's not impossible. I've seen it done, that people provide values right where they are. Maybe it's other travelers. Maybe it's type people that speak English. And then you can able to communicate and exchange something and then able to use that thing that you traded with for something else, which leads to, getting enough leverage to get yourself out of a bad scenario, which is really easy to sound when you say it, but in reality, it's actually a lot of work, but it can be done. Again, like I said, you're always scanning for more information and you're always trying to see what kind of people would kind of like help you. If it's like, don't ask like an attractive girl that get a lot of people that approach it to them already. Because like if you go to a person that's high value and highly approached, they're really comfortable in saying no to you. But if you go towards people that get approached less, or they're more likely to help you, more generous, let's say older people or like people who are like, strong and burly, like they don't mind helping you out, or like they're not scared of you or whatever. So as a man, I'm saying. Now if you're a girl, the tact is all totally different. But as a man, like if you're like me, young man, military age, whatever the fuck, you go approach, some young girl, they're gonna be like, well, you're the aggressor. You just look like an aggressor by just approaching. So you better be offering some massive value, otherwise you could be in some shit in the Western world at least. But in this kind of setting, I went towards anyone that looked kind of like tough, intimidating, or bigger than me, so that they felt comfortable that they could talk to me. Only because the nature of the dialogue was so urgent. What else did I say? So you also want to be watching the rhythm and the patterns of an area, like where the policemen stand, where the cameras are, and how the cars park, where are the street watchers. There's always street watchers in every corner, and of course there's activity in any group. Like let's say there's gangs in any group, or like there's the wise guys, or whoever the fuck is in that club. They're doing their thing, and if you just fall into a scenario, they know you're there, and especially if you hang out for a long time, you need to know who could be your friend, who could be your enemy, who could be dangerous, who could be useful, like who could like help you get out of a scenario. Like you gotta be able to determine that, and that takes that calm kind of like gray man approach to like kind of like big at the same time be able to gather that information that like what kind of people here are dangerous and useful. So that's that. There's one side tip: if you ever do sleep outside the street, again back into the ninja principle of becoming undesirable, so that you can be uninteresting. You could actually piss on yourself and fucking cover yourself in piss and like so you smell bad. Now you're fucking exhausted, so you will fall asleep. But someone else looking at you and be like, this guy's dirty, he's pissy, like smells bad. They might think twice about trying to rob you or like, take out your pockets whenever you're passed out. So that's the key point. That was interesting. This is again with no sleeping bag, not because when in contrast, when you're like let's say camping somewhere in the army, or like you're for the unit, you got all weapons, sleeping bags, mattresses, like people taking turns, security, and all that stuff. You don't have that shit when you're on your own, especially if you're traveling and if you get stuck in a kind of a compromised scenario, especially in an urban setting. We're not talking about nature here. What else? Again, you want to draw a map. So let's say again back to the Thailand scenario. So look at this. So this is like your personal kind of like circle of like close quarter combat kind of zone, which is like imminent threat, and there's a close quarter battle kind of battleground. Like check out, basically be aware of your environment and how it's kind of like working out towards or against your advantages. And also part of the exercise, I had to draw a map, kind of like this one, like this street right there, and there was a bank there, there's a church there. Policemen, where the bank's at, like because where the banks are important because that's where the money's coming out of the bank, and where the police guys are because they'll come and take you, stop you because you can see they're pretty close to the banks and stuff. So it's important to know these kind of things and the geography and where to situate yourself where you can get any sort of help or money and stuff like that. That's it. You got to build trust and empathy so you can kind of like get back on your way. And this is very hard to do, especially in multiple languages. Sometimes it helps in your favor to speak your language, not the native language, to really look like you really need help. And sometimes it's much better to speak the local language as much as you can than it is to speak your language to see that like okay your experience and you might be able to get deeper. Now it all depends on the urgency of a matter. So I imagine that if you want to have like more connection with the person and you want to get closer, you want to speak in Spanish or whatever the local language is as much as you can, so that they may feel that you're trying to come into as deeply as possible, so that you gain empathy. Empathy is very important. That's a currency that prolongs the attention and the help that you can get. Because if you don't get any empathy or you appear too dangerous, too hard, no one's going to help you. And it's really hard for men to get that soft empathy because they're not like with titties and ass walking around with no dick, unless you're one of those groups of the special alphabet groups. But if you're a real man with, you walk in the street, people are not going to be sympathetic to you. You have to make it vocalized and communicated that you need help in that given scenario so that they give any sort of attention that you need. Like, let's say you need food or phone call or whatever. Another thing you could do is, for surveillance wise, you could hold your camera like this and act all like subtle and like, surveillance, like it goes up from there, like from that bottom homeless guy trying to gather information from his surroundings to someone who's more savvy and the information that they're trying to get is more like specific to a certain operation or whatever the fuck, like a certain person or certain, I don't know, whatever fucking activity, like from robberies to like kidnappings or whoever the fuck it is. You gathering information, and the thing is, when you're gathering information, you can't be looking like you're gathering information. So if the subject is over there, you don't want to be sitting there looking at them like that. What you want to do is like look at your phone, but you're actually like kind of like filming them or something like that, or like hold it like this and you're filming them. And in that sense, you can gather information and then look at those videos. There was another cool tip that, like you said, okay, like when you're walking around the city, film yourself talking to the camera, but really you're filming the background around you. to see what kind of people might be following you, because you might have somebody in pursuit of you in an area, and they may not want to be exposed. Now, like if you travel in Asia, that's how I've seen Asian spies follow normal people that they may be of interest for them to gather information to see if there's any threat. And they just follow you, and they look totally plain clothes, and they'll just follow you, and they report on their phones, and they look totally inconspicuous. Meanwhile, you have no idea they're even there, because they all look the same, right? All the Asians look the same, and in fact they do. But the thing is, when you film someone following you for so and so long, you kind of build a case in your head that, like, okay, this guy's been following me over like 10 blocks, and I've taken so many turns, he's still showing up, then he's probably looking for something. And that way you have to do counter surveillance and see, like, if you can go back to him and get some information out of him. What else? Also, regarding hiding things and security things, I mean, there's public lockers, and there's like pipelines and areas that you can, like, things that repeat, that people hard to pay attention to a whole structure. Like, you'll see a lot of structures, modern architecture, it's very repetitive and mathematic. So, like, people don't look at like one part of it, like a cornerstone or something. Like, they look at this entire, like, repetitive structure. So it's very easy to hide something in it as long as you cover it. So, like, you hide something, you open it, and you put your whatever things, passport, papers, money, phone, equipment, tools, whatever. You hide it, close it, and then forget about it. But of course, you have to make sure nobody's watching you, you're not getting surveillance, so that when you do return to it, it will still be there. Otherwise, you'll be in deep shit. Now, again, this is very common knowledge for all for the street cats out there, but for us house cats that grew up in a middle class silver spoon situation, like moi, I wasn't really rich, but like I didn't grow up on the street, and the experience that I have is that, like, well, coming in the future, the way the economy is working and the way I'm working and how fucked up things are, I might have to deal with the street. And these are kind of things that you might have to see, of like how to hide valuables, surveillance, counter surveillance, being able to become vanish wearing multiple clothes, this different stuff, and making up operations of a certain scenario so that you can gain an advantage, that you're not necessarily a victim of a circumstance, but rather you're the cause of an effect on an area. And that's the kind of power that we're kind of talking about here. That's the whole point why I took this whole course, is because I want to be in a place where I'm causing the effect on the environment, as opposed to receiving and being the victim of a scenario where I'm being robbed, or I'm always losing, or like I can't do anything. Like, you don't want to be in that situation, that mindset, and that's fucking dangerous. Another thing with urban movement thing, he talked about scapology, like, for example, like breaking through, fucking, what is it? Like wrist. I don't have any zap straps right now, but basically it's like a zap strapped, and then you use something like a paracord, even a thin paracord or a thick one, and then you would use this to create a sawing motion to cut through the paracord. So you would have the shoelaces that are made really like this kind of paracord material, that even thinner paracord, Kevlar material, and then you could use it in that thing, and then you would put it on your toes, your foot, and then you would, in a kind of sawing action, you would cut through the zap strap. Another thing you do with this one, that's another thing that you just turn into weapons, choke, or whatever the fuck. You see them all, hitman, whatever. Another one was the handcuff one. The handcuff, of course, you can pick it fairly easily if you have like a nice rectangular piece of steel that looks kind of like some sort of handle at the end. But this one's like just a rectangle, so it's pretty thin, but strong enough to go through between the teeth, so it causes that slippage, and then you push it and open. But you gotta be careful to not push, and like make sure you got that slip. Otherwise, it'll torque your wrist, and it'll get even tighter, and it will cut circulation to your hand. You'll fuck yourself. And if they see that you're escaping, then you just got yourself an ass kick. So another way is like you can line up the fucking X's and they'll fucking break and shit like that. Like, professional prisoners know all this kind of shit like by heart. But the thing is, they don't do it because they know the trouble that it brings them. So be careful what the fuck you do with this kind of information. Lock picks and stuff. Oh yeah, prison pockets. Now let's say you get caught, and you had time to prepare to get caught for some reason. You could walk around with shit hooped up your ass, gangstered up your ass, Now there's so many different variations. This is obviously like a big one, like a fucking maybe like a thinner cylinder object that you could use that might have like a bit of a hoop. I don't have an example with me, but I'll make one. Um, that's like plastic, so you can have like a kind of like a container. Now within that container, you can have like a little string or some sort of way to pull it out of your ass. Otherwise, you'd be stuck with shit up your ass for a long time. You leave it up there. What kind of things would you take in there? Pig locks, Kevlar saw, um, lock picking equipment, ceramic blades. Now you can get the whole thing ceramic or like plastic, maybe G10 plastic, like that can pass through scanners. So like if you do have shit up your ass and they pull you to prison or whatever the fuck that environment may be that you're trapped or kidnapped or whatever the fuck it is, if you do get scanned, the G10 plastic equipment stuff will not get detected because if you have razor blades up your ass and they notice it, they'll pull that shit out and kick your fucking ass, kill you, whatever the fuck. So you'll be exposed. As you can see, the whole note is to be not to be stealthy, to be not caught. And I think some of the technology that you have to be concerned with is if whatever awareness that you have about their scanners and what kind of environment if there's a risk for it, prepare for it. Like if you're gonna possibly go to jail in Thailand, prepare for it. I mean, as much as you can. Maybe get all this stuff equipment ready so that you have your jail EDC and then you have your normal EDC. So if you do ever end up getting compromised in any sort of situation that God forbid because your money ran out or whatever the fuck pandemic bullshit comes up, you can at least have a chance of having some security or maybe even shoving a phone up your ass so you can fucking contact the outside world and get more information or whatever the fuck it is. Even as far as charging your phone with the fucking charger. Now I don't know how to do that, but the concept is if you figure that out, in those places it increases your chance of survival and getting back home. Otherwise you'll be there and your family will be left outside and they have no fucking idea where the fuck you are, and that's it. I mean, yes, these are extreme tactics against extreme environments, but man, the world we live in is getting more and more extreme. So the extreme environments are going to be more and more places. You might end up in one, and they might affect you in a very negative way. So that was the key points. What else was it? We've got prison pockets, lock picks. Oh yeah, you can also make sure you buy yourself some handcuff keys and cut it up in a way. So for example, if there's a loop here in the fucking key, cut off the loop and just have the key and cut the key in half, but the part that still works, the other half, the teeth there. So you camouflage it. So you can still have the key on you, but it just looks like a broken bolt or something in your pocket. So it doesn't look anything suspicious. That was a good tip. What else is there? Yeah, so again, always studying environment, always be aware of your surroundings, always don't be afraid to approach people, talk to people, gather information. If you stay close to yourself and wear a hat and just hide away, you're not really gathering intel that increases your chance of survival and stealthiness and whatever, confidence, heroism, whatever the fuck it is. Because what you're trying to do is get the fuck out of a situation or master an environment. I have a buddy who lives in Phuket. He's a kickboxing Muay Thai champion. And he's been there for 12 fucking years. Now, he's not illegal in any way. But this guy has been able to learn English language, been able to make money there by talking to people. He doesn't have a work permit or nothing like that. But he works there. He makes money. 12 years. His country's all fucked up, so he can't go home. He still communicates with people back home. He still has basic resources. Sometimes he has nice shit. Sometimes he loses it. He still gets a plenty of ass. Fucks a lot of hot girls. But at the same time, he is in shape, he's healthy, but he's a part of his community, but without being compromised. This is depending on how long you may be staying. My buddy's stuck out there in the island for years. He has visas and stuff, but if Thailand decides to fuck him up, they could that, and he knows that, and he doesn't barely has any human rights. So you could end up in a situation like that, or worse. You go home to a first world country and you don't have money to pay rent. You're homeless, and now you gotta fucking figure out that scenario, which is much harder in some regards. So that's what I'm facing. Let's say I go back to fucking Canada, bitch, and I have to deal with more difficult scenarios. Well, these are the things that I'm practicing and learning and preaching now because I'm paying for this information. I'm also practicing it so that I increase my chances of being able to be useful to my kids, to my family when I'm stuck out there in the wild, urban, concrete jungle. What else have we got here? Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna fucking cut it off here. I think that's pretty good. If you guys have any questions regarding urban movement or becoming the gray man and things like that, let me know. I'll try to my best to answer with what it is, the kind of things that I've learned. And I hope you guys like it. I hope if you like this video, please fucking subscribe and like and shit and do all that shit. Why do I ask this shit? Because if I have a few more followers, I'll fucking get paid and I can give you a fuck ton more content. And whatever you like, let me know. I'll try to make them fucking better. However you like it. All right. Until then, adios.